Hello everyone, Cypher here, coming at you again with another live retrospective here of my trials and tribulations through Pokemon VGCs, getting ready for regionals in Toronto. This is day 4, technically. I say technically because I'm gonna come clean with y'all. I have actually been training to the side. It's been kind of difficult for me to record these vlogs to the side. The starting date that I'm gonna have at the very beginning of the video, we can definitely say is the last date that I did all my training here. So, which means, spoiler alert, yeah, and I mean, you're gonna know by the thumbnail as well too. Yes, I did get my team completely set up, so we're ready for, well, we're ready technically, but we're also not ready because I haven't done any practice with that team yet. So, but I'll go down to the details of what I did here. So, um, I would say about a day or two after I recorded my last video, basically we went ahead and got ready to get Zapdos set up. I'm going by my notes again, by the way, here. Um, so Zapdos was the first Pokemon I focused on out of the core 3 that I decided. Um, Zapdos seemed to be a good substitute for Volcarona from Cybertron's team that I mentioned a couple of times in the past couple of videos, in the sense that he would be an alt starter alongside Mousehold as a bulky setup. I confirmed upon further research that Pokemon without an origin mark are not banned as long as they come from Pokemon Home. I pretty much mentioned that in the last video, but I did get the full confirmation. I was doing extra research online. So it seems like we're good with using Zapdos, thankfully. So, and that, plus I know his role in the setup as well too with the team. So now I know that he's a alternate starter, in addition to Revavroom. At least I know what he could be used for in certain setups. So to figure out what type of moveset I was going to use with him, again, I did what I did with Revavroom, and I looked online to see if I could find some decent setups for Zapdos. I did find a user by the name of Cloverbells who made a video about basically about Zapdos, setting up a good team alongside with him. Zapdos' roles mentioned in there. I think there were several setups that he mentioned, if I recall correctly, much similar to another YouTuber that I found. And he did mention a moveset that looked like would work out pretty good. I don't have the moveset marked here on my notes. However, one of the moves in it was Detect. I decided to replace Detect with Ice Beam to counter against Landorus, since Landorus is probably one of the biggest and the most well-used Pokemon in VGCs. So basically, I did some testing as well with Pikalix, and it did seem like that Ice Beam would one-hit KO Landorus with Zapdos. So that definitely seemed like a good choice at the time. Basically, I would need to swap moves around in the future to make the setup work if need be too. So I told myself that as I was writing down the notes, like, okay, maybe I need to change the moves up a bit. Further information obtained from that video in question. Zapdos works well with screens, so in other words, any sort of light screening, reflect screening, seems like it would work out very well for Zapdos to keep the extra bulk on hand. Unfortunately, the team that I have set up does not have any sort of screeners on hand, but that is a good thing to keep in mind in the event that I feel like maybe the team does need a screener after all. So we'll keep that in mind regardless. And yeah, my notes, and now I'm reading a little bit closer, there were multiple type of builds that were brought up by Cloverbells. But it was a primary focus seems to be as a bulky attacker otherwise. Like, its primary role is just attacking while soaking up damage. Tailwind can be switched out for Volt Switch if there's another Tailwinder. I don't think there is in this team, as we'll get to here in a bit. I could correct myself later on in the video, but I don't believe Gyarados. There we go. Spoiler alert. Yeah, I don't think Gyarados actually has it, but we'll find out here in a second as I keep going down my notes, because even I can't really remember here. I mostly followed the setup mentioned in Clover's video, discovered while attempting to set up Zapdos that he does not learn Ice Beam in Gen 9. That was a pretty big surprise for me. I do recall Zapdos being able to learn Ice Beam multiple times during the past couple of generations, but unless things changed recently, it looks like that Ice Beam no longer is a thing in Gen 9. So, but as a counter, I did look up some more of his moves, and it looks like Terra Blast is indeed available as Zapdos, as is with most other builds or in most other Pokemon to begin with. but I did find out its base power was 90 as opposed to Ice Beam, which is did I say 90? I might have said it. Terra Blast is 80, while Ice Beam is 90. So there's a 10-point difference, regardless. However, with that, as I mentioned in the last video, I did set up Zapdos with IVs maxed out already. I don't recall exactly why still. I don't know if it was for a tournament or for certain other aspects, but bottom line is that he's already 252 in special attack and 252 in speed. So considering that, I felt like it would balance out because of that. Because I think the build I was looking at with Clover Bell was showing as certain stats mixed all over the place as opposed to focusing on two stats, which I believe that is the normal thing to do, but still, it was already set up with that, and since I wanted to save as much money as possible in game, I went on ahead and stuck with that. And it looks like it might work out. I'm not 100% certain yet. Again, I got to play test with it first to make sure. But so as a result of that, yeah, I also talked to a friend who recommended looking into Roost and turning Zapdos into a Terra type, flying in this case, in the event Zapdos is too frail, as Zapdos loses its typing while roosting. So I guess he didn't mention about flying, but he did mention that if I Terra typed and used Roost, that would lose the typing, which means any sort of like super effective moves would no longer be a thing while using Roost. So that is something for me to consider. I don't believe I'd put that in this move set just yet, but again, that's another option to consider. Um, so I focused on raising Zapdos. I got him raised in less time than the others due to his IVs already being raised to max, and level was already at 100. So may have used them in competitive at some point, but cannot recall. Again, same thing I've told you all about 3 times now at this point. But thanks to that, yeah, we were able to get everything set up really quickly. It was about 10 minutes, I think it took. 5-10 minutes to get Zapdos set up, ready for VGCs. So we were really lucky in this case. All the other extra items I needed, like to change the natures and everything, were ready there, so we're good. I then did some research on Gyarados. There we go. Since I had time, confirmed that it fulfills the same role as Water Tauros in Cybertron's list, as in it's supposed to be an anti-Amoonguss Pokemon, and it counters against Fire Terra. So it does seem to serve that purpose pretty well. One thing I didn't mention in the notes in that is this is something I'm definitely keeping in mind. A lot of players do seem to use Intimidate Pokemon at the start of their matches, so that's another thing to keep in mind with Gyarados at the very least if I did want to do something. If not that, switch out to Gyarados to bring down the attack on these Pokemon here. Funny enough, I found yet another video from Clover Bells on Gyarados. This one confirmed Gyarados is also a bulky Pokemon and can be a good attacker. Confirmed with my own research that he does seem to make a good substitute for Paldean Tauros, as he can use Water Terra in a similar fashion, as I mentioned earlier, and has attack stats that exceed Paldean Tauros. So that is something that's actually a really good thing to hear. Because, again, like I mentioned before, I did want to use Gyarados and Zapdos since they were from my copies of Fire Red, and it just feels, like a sentimental sort of thing to use Pokemon like that in my teams. So looks like we were good to go with getting Gyarados set up. So during that same day, I went on, checked some more information, and ultimately I just decided just to go ahead and build Gyarados right then and there. So it took a little bit longer because he was at level 65 at the time, but everything else otherwise was all right. I think I had to buy a few extra items, vitamins, but I still had more than enough money after selling some of my items to begin with. So I went from like 1,000,000 Poké Dollars to like 100,000 Poké Dollars, and then I sold some extra items and got back to another 1,000,000, and now I'm back down to 200,000. I haven't used any of the mochis yet, thank goodness, because the mochi runs, again, that would easily take about an hour and a half to get all the items necessary for that. So yeah, but thankfully I haven't needed to do that yet. If I find out that this team isn't working out too well, I might start building those additional Pokemon I mentioned before, but I would like to avoid that because that's going to be extra time commitments to begin with, but we'll see either way. So after building Gyarados, he was the 5th one completely built. We're good to go with him, which I'm really happy about that. I then studied up on Garchomp, as my last Pokemon to use. Garchomp, who would need to serve the role as, for Hydrogen, would have to have that. I'm sorry. He would have to had. Oh, man, I wrote these notes really bad. I'm sorry. Would have had in the team. Why did I write it like that? I don't understand. All right, whatever. Anyway, bottom line is that he serves the same role as Hydrogen in Cybertron's listing. Poison Terra to help with defending against bad typing matchups and walling Pokemon, apparently. Garchomp seems to have 5 base stat points more on defense compared to Hydreigon, but 5 less on special defense. So that is something to keep in mind. Kind of maybe sort of the opposite of what my mindset is with Blissey, where Blissey is perfect against special attackers. But in this case, Garchomp's going to be better against regular attackers, which I'm hoping that's the norm in VGCs. People in the comments could probably correct me if I'm wrong on that or not, provided that this is still relevant by the time people watch it. But still, well, I guess, again, we'll see about that. Nonetheless, I decided to build a Speed Garchomp recommended by another YouTuber I found by the name of James Boyett. His information was really helpful in this case, and the stats that he provided was a good guideline into what I wanted to build for Gyarados. And we were able to build it on that exact same day. So again, 30 minutes or so. I think maybe it would have been like 20 actually. It wasn't terribly long with Gyarados. With Garchomp. I'm thinking about Gyarados still. Garchomp definitely didn't take much time. In fact, I think it was a blur in terms of what I set up with him. It was just like really quick, got the moves set up. Vitamins were given to him, and that was about it otherwise in that case. So we were good to go with that entirely. So as a result, the team is now fully 100% complete. So I got it all set up. I managed to try to take a picture, as you guys can see here in the footage with my Pokemon, but apparently Game Freak has not added the option to take a team picture in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, so that was a little bit annoying. But after multiple attempts, I was able to take that picture either way. I mean, I really wanted to take it for sentimental reasons again, because, again, that was my first... This is my first team I'm setting up for any sort of competitive event in like multiple years. So I really wanted to, commemorate that specific moment with me taking a good picture like that. So that was still fun despite that. I got them all in that picture, most of them. I think Maushold was left out of it, but it is what it is either way. But yeah, I attempted a test match afterwards with a casual random matchmaking, but got wiped out once opponent's setup Hisuian, Basculegion, and Gastrodon, both of which I did not really know the moves for in that case. But either way, it was a really interesting setup to deal with that. But because if I remember correctly with the notes here, Gastrodon, you basically used Helping Hand support, and Basculegion used Surf. I have better notes about this, like actual written down notes, because I was also learning too that it's a really good idea to keep notes with you so you can learn with the notes in question. But at the time, I did not have my notes with me, so, or at least my notepad and pencil, so I wasn't able to write down anything. But that much I did was able to write down. I think it was like during turn 3 or turn 4 that I saw that Helping Hand support with Basculegion with Surf. So it wasn't like an immediate thing either. But I didn't have a good counter against that because I knew next to nothing about Basculegion in terms of what it could do. Same as well for why do I keep forgetting his name over and over again, even though he's so freaking used? Gastrodon, yeah. Gastrodon, I'm not 100% certain. I wasn't too certain about how his support was, but I know he's really, really, really overused in the meta as well too. At least he was. I don't think I've seen him a lot recently, but I know over the last several years he's definitely been overused in a lot of competitive teams, especially in champion teams too. But I just wanted to get a decent feel for it. Naturally, that first loss, I didn't let it get to me because, again, I wasn't really prepared for it. I wasn't really expecting what was going to come at me. So the game plan I have, I'm taking a break here. I was actually taking a break for the last few days here. But this very last setup that I got done, now that I got it completed, starting tomorrow, I'm going to start dedicating a couple of hours basically to battling, just nonstop battling over and over again, taking down notes, and starting to recognize certain patterns with certain Pokemon. Like, what does this person use with this Pokemon? What do they use with that Pokemon? What kind of setup did they use? Try to study it as best as I can. Make sure to keep it in mind. And then during another couple hours, I'm going to focus on catching up with the most recent VGCs that happened in Peoria, Illinois. I mentioned this on Twitter. I did not know that VGCs was actually happening up until a few days ago. Had I known much earlier, I probably would have registered for that event and went over there instead, because Peoria is literally just a 3-hour drive from here, whereas Toronto is 6 hours away. Though, to be fair, we did have plans for Toronto to begin with outside of VGC, so it kind of works out either way. But it would have been nice to go to Peoria, try out my team over there, and then go to regionals over in Toronto, and then who the heck knows, maybe I would have gotten a decent record on both things, but now I can only rely on one thing, because Lord knows that Play Pokemon apparently, or the Pokemon Company, does not support VGCs that well in terms of organized play. I'm sorry to say. Back when I was in San Antonio, props to anyone who's watching in San Antonio, there was a VGC league, actually, funny enough, at a place called Dragon Slayer. I never expected to play, anything like that over there, but one of the people there that I got to know over there, he was super into Pokemon VGC, and he actually was able to get a league set up over there. I don't know if they're still doing it to this day, but they're the only place I can find that actually does VGCs, like at least between where I lived at in San Antonio, where I'm currently at right now in the Midwest, and where we might be moving to. That's another reason I'm going to Toronto, because I'm not sure if I'm going to be moving there or not. But in Toronto, there's no VGC leagues. Around the Midwest, there's no VGC leagues, except in Chicago, but I'm not going to be going to Chicago for something like that. There's no support at all for that sort of thing. It's like, but to be fair, I can't really blame, people for not getting a league set up for VGCs, because it's like, okay, well, where's the place you can play this sort of thing at to begin with? The only places you can think of is just card shops. And that's if the card shops are willing to support video game related stuff, not, card game related things or whatever, which there's a bunch of leagues for card games, obviously, a bunch, like many, many, many types. But it's really hard to find a business that can support that. That's why I was like, I thought more about it. It's like, okay, yeah, you think about esports, like with Smash Brothers. You think about it with, like, Splatoon. It's like, even though Splatoon doesn't really have much of a, esports support around here. You think about all these things, and like the only places that you could able to do that stuff at is in, places that sell either games or just are willing to host the events, period, or you go to a bar for this sort of thing. It's like there's not really a good place to set up VGCs at, unless you go to like a retro game store or something. But again, that's depending if they even have the space to set up for something like that to begin with. So it's really hard to find a business to support VGCs, is what I'm trying to get at. And going to my point here with this rant, as a result, it's also hard to gain the points necessary to even make it to like Worlds, if you wanted to get the points set up for that, because VGCs require a lot more that you go to these regional events compared to TCGs, where you can at least try to build up points going to league events, which, depending on where you live at, may be a little bit of a grind, or you could actually get pretty lucky and attend several dozen different leagues within like 100-mile radius and just get the points that way, or the majority of the points rather, that way to 10 Worlds. So it's really unfair for VGCs. This is why I especially am taking this at a very casual heart, because the only way I could make it to, nationals and possibly Worlds is if I actually win the whole thing. Because, I can get the points, to go to Worlds, but then I'd have to attend several dozen other regional events. So that's why I'm not really treating this serious as a result. But it would be nice to have that option. It kind of stinks. I'm glad we're at a point we're at a better point compared to where we're at way back in 1999 when I first played these games, where I heard about, the esports scene kind of sort of with with Pokemon in Japan. And the only thing you could do in the States is just find people to play against randomly, or get as lucky as I did and go to a mall tour event where there's dozens and dozens of trainers battling against each other with the games. Though half of them are using hacked Pokemon. Wow, doesn't that sound familiar? But there wasn't really any official support for VGCs until like 2007, 2008, I think. Maybe 2009. At least for the way that we recognize it today. Prior to that, the only other thing was going to like the big Pokemon tour events like Pokemon Rocks America or Pokemon Journey Across America. Those were the only other ways you could go to like these sort of things. So I'm glad we got a better setup now than we do before, but it could definitely still be a lot better all the same. But yeah, again, I don't even know if I'd be able to still do this stuff even if they did have that sort of thing. I'm just thinking more about the people that are competing in these things. Like, it would be a lot better for the VG side to get some extra support. Mind you, I have additional complaints about other setups beyond that, like with Pokemon Go not having a proper setup yet for a league event. And don't get me started on Pokemon Unite. How the frick are you supposed to do that unless you're part of an esports team? But I digress. I went on a tangent there, didn't I? The bottom line is that I'm looking forward to attending this stuff all the same. It's just, that's the other reason why I'm not really trying to focus super heavily on this too. Like, there's not really, in my opinion, there's not really a point to doing that unless you are going to every single regionals event and dedicating your time, money, and efforts to doing that. Even if I had the money, it's like, I got my focuses on other things too. Like, I was playing Baldur's Gate 3 again, like I mentioned before. And it's like, and I managed to barely beat that game, by the way. That was really game of the year easily for me. But it's like, I love focusing on video games. I love focusing on anime. I love focusing on the fandoms I'm in, like with the furry fandom and everything. I love focusing on, so I got my interest on like divided all over the place. Pokemon has always had a deep set of a deep thing with me, but it's one of those things where I love it, but there's other interests I gotta focus on too. I can't be like certain people where they dedicate nonstop focus on Pokemon. Like, there's just other things I love doing, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I don't know, depending on how you look at it. I love it myself. I love having this kind of lifestyle where I can, do multiple things. But it's like they say, what's the old saying goes? Like, master of all trade, or no, not master of all trades. It's like, I have multiple interests, but I'm not a master at any of them, I guess is what I could say. I guess that's the best way to word me in that case. Anyway, I went on a tangent, like I said before. Sorry about that. I hope you all were interested in that. If not, you probably already closed the video by now. But again, I'll get to explaining my trials and tribulations starting tomorrow here. I can't guarantee that vlog will be up on the same day or a few days afterwards. And if anything, I might actually narrow this down to a week report, depending on how much time I got, available during the week. But rest assured, I am going to be training for a couple hours, doing some studying for a couple hours. And that's just going to be the game plan, unless I realize that the team's just not working even after I got my studying set up on what I got and what I'm feeling like it's not working out. And then I'll try to switch out Pokemon, keep doing that some more until we get a little closer to the deadline for wanting to submit my team to RK9, I guess is the name of that organization. I don't want to do it right at the button, so maybe like 5 days beforehand I'll submit my team, and then I'll just play test it some more, and then just get ready for regionals in Toronto, and we'll see how that goes. All right, well, thank you all again for watching this video. If you like it, please like it, subscribe if you want more of this content. Until next time, I'll see y'all later. Take care.